Hello, friends. My name is Lisa Graustein, and I'm a member of Beacon Hill Friends Meeting in Boston. And I'm really excited to be the plenary speaker this summer at Sessions. As I have sat in prayer over the last few months, holding the plenary and holding our yearly meeting, what's become really clear to me is the need to experiment a little bit, the need to try out some new ways of being together and talking to each other. I also recognize that only a few hundred friends of the several thousand New England get to attend Sessions. And so I'm inviting you today to join me in an experiment with doing some virtual plenaries between now and August. The theme for Sessions this summer is Provoke One Another to Love. And this is a line taken from a letter Margaret Fell Fox wrote to early friends, where she's quoting Hebrews chapter 10. And the way that provoke was used at this time in the English language, it didn't have the kind of wheedling thing that I as an older sibling did to my younger sister as a child, but provoke here means to call in, to invite, to engage, to call into being. And so I want us to explore this theme in some new and different ways before we get to Sessions, as well as at Sessions. So I understand a plenary to have three primary functions. First, that it's a shared experience that prepares those of us who are at Sessions for the work that God has set before us that week in our business meetings. Second, that it's a place where we as friends say and understand who we are as Quakers in New England, that we're actually articulating our faith out loud. And third, that it's a time to come together and really listen for who God is calling us to be, not just at Sessions, but in the coming year. Now, as a body committed to continuing revelation, this is something we do in our faith all the time, that in our families, our monthly meetings, our quarterly meetings, our youth programs, retreats, committee works, all the different ways that we as friends come together, we are being prepared for the work that God has put before us, that we should be talking about who we are and how we understand our faith, and that we're constantly listening for who God calls us to be. But as a whole yearly meeting, we have very few opportunities to do that as a large body. So I want to experiment and play with what a plenary can look like if it happens in multiple parts over time and it's accessible to anybody who can access a video or a podcast. So as I've held this plenary and our yearly meeting in prayer over the last few months, I've also really been listening for what I hear friends in New England yearning for and what I hear God calling us to. And at Sessions this summer, at Living Faith, and some of my work with the youth programs, I've been hearing a lot of the same things coming up. And so one of those is a question about how do we live out our minutes? That in the last few years, we've approved some really significant minutes about not just how we manage ourselves, but our relationship with the wider world and the peoples of the world. And that we're really questioning what does it mean to not just approve that minute, but really embody it and live it out. And these are minutes around repudiating the doctrine of discovery, challenging white supremacy, climate change, a whole host of issues. The second is this summer at Sessions, we sort of had a collective groundswell for the first time that I can remember to really address systems of oppression in some new ways. And one of the commitments we made coming out of this past August was that we would take this year as a yearly meeting to develop some practices for noticing patterns of oppression when we're enacting them so that we can start to interrupt them and better align our behaviors with both justice and who God is calling us to be. And the third, and I heard this particularly at Living Faith, is just how overwhelmed so many of us feel right now with the state of our nation and the world, and how isolated many friends are feeling, and how much we long for opportunities to come together and to drink from the deep well of our faith so that we can go out as renewed friends and courageously and powerfully live out God's vision for who we're supposed to be in the world and what the world is supposed to look like. So I want to help us provoke one another to this great love that God is calling us to. And so over the coming months, I'm hoping that you will join me in this experiment. And what I want to offer each month is a series of short videos and podcasts like this one, where we do three things. We would take one of these big minutes that we're under the weight of and really explore it, understand what it means, understand what the commitment we've made in that minute is, and how it might help us live out going forward, not just in carrying out that minute, but also in looking at the other things that we have before us. The second piece is how that minute can help us notice different patterns of oppression. Because when we notice a pattern of oppression, we gain the capacity to then interrupt it and replace that pattern of oppression with a pattern of behavior that is more consistent with who God is calling us to be in the world and God's vision for how we treat each other. And then the third piece I want to help us lift up are the different spiritual practices, both internal and external, that friends around New England are engaging in that help us stay grounded when the work is hard, that help us listen for God's guidance, and that are helping us do the transformative work we need to be doing right now. So I hope you will join me in this. I want to start by us looking at our minute repudiating the doctrine of discovery and really understanding what it means. From there, looking at our minute challenging white supremacy and all the ways that white supremacy still shows up among the religious society of friends, as well as the wider world, and what we can do to change that and bring about some racial justice and healing. I also want us to look at our minute on climate change, not as an issue separate from white supremacy, the doctrine of discovery, but as an integral piece of how different systems of oppression have been used to control people and the planet, and where that has gotten us to this current moment we're living in right now, and what we can do to change that. So we'll also be looking at our minute supporting the Poor People's Campaign and how that can be a guidepost for us for what faith-based change can look like. My hope is that by looking at these different minutes, as well as some of our other ones around immigrant justice, Israel-Palestine, and other related issues, that we will gain a deeper understanding of what we've already committed to and how those commitments help us understand and shape the work that God's called us to do this summer at Sessions with the various business items we'll be addressing. And so I'm asking for your help. I would love your insight, your experiences, your action, your wisdom, spiritual practices, questions, leadings, anything that you've got life for that feels like it's connected and that will help all of us provoke each other to the deeper love that God is calling us to. So please reach out to me at lisa@neym.org and check back here at the Yearly Meeting YouTube page where you can find more of these videos and podcasts in this experiment with a virtual plenary. Thank you, friends.